Imagine a machine so brutal, so utterly uncompromising, that its own crew felt less like operators and more like its first victims. This wasn't just a tank, it was a verdict, delivered in high explosives. This is the story of the ISU-152, the Soviets' Vorovoi or beast killer, and the men who lived, fought, and often died inside its steel shell. To understand the ISU-152 is to understand that it wasn't designed for elegance. It was a blunt instrument of war, a 152mm howitzer cannon strapped onto a heavy tank chassis. Its job was simple: to erase whatever was in front of it. Fortified bunkers, concrete pillboxes, and most famously, the fearsome German Tiger and Panther tanks. The nickname Beast Killer wasn't just propaganda, it was a promise. Life inside the ISU-152 was a claustrophobic, deafening, and intensely intimate experience. The crew of 4 or 5 men lived in constant, nervous communion with their machine. They knew its strengths, its weaknesses, and the sheer, earth-shattering power it held. Every creak of the suspension, every clank of the loader's mechanism, was part of a language only they understood. It was a language of survival. The commander, perched with his periscope, wasn't just looking for targets, he was constantly calculating risk. The ISU-152's gun had a very limited traverse, meaning it could only move a few degrees left or right on its own. To aim at a target outside this narrow arc, the entire 46-ton vehicle had to pivot. The driver had to turn the whole machine, exposing its thinner side armor to enemy fire. This was what crews called the cost of traverse, and it was paid in sweat and often in blood. Every adjustment was a gamble, a tense ballet of machine and nerve against a backdrop of potential death. And then there was the gun itself. Firing the M10 or ML-2 howitzer was a cataclysmic event. The recoil wasn't just a push, it was a physical blow that slammed through the entire hull. Unsecured equipment became a deadly projectile, and the concussive blast inside the fighting compartment could rupture eardrums. The air would instantly fill with the acrid smell of burnt cordite, a thick, choking fog that lingered long after the shell had left the barrel. The sheer violence of it was something crews had to brace for, physically and mentally, every single time. A momentary lapse in concentration during firing could mean a broken bone or worse. The psychological impact of this weapon was just as potent as its physical destruction. For German soldiers, the distinctive, deep boom of the 152mm gun was a sound of pure dread. They knew that a direct hit from one of its nearly 50-kilogram high-explosive shells didn't just disable a tank, it obliterated it. Armor would shatter, turrets would be ripped from their mountings, and crews were often killed instantly by the sheer concussive force, even without penetration. When an ISU-152 appeared on the battlefield, German defensive formations would often shift. Commanders would hesitate, recalculating the odds. Its presence alone could stall an attack or force a retreat. It was a psychological weapon that warped the tactical landscape. For the Soviet infantry, the Zveroboi was a godsend. It was the key that unlocked stubborn defenses. When a German machine gun nest or anti-tank gun held up in advance, the call went out for the ISU-152. Its arrival meant the obstacle would soon be gone, not just suppressed, but physically removed from the equation. This created corridors for the infantry, opportunities for them to push forward and survive. The heavy gun was their guardian angel, a brutal, loud, and terrifying one. But this power came at a tremendous cost, and that cost was logistics. The shells were massive and heavy. The ISU-152 could only carry about 20 of them. 20 rounds. That's a tiny number for a vehicle expected to be in continuous combat. Every shot had to count. Reloading was a slow, back-breaking process. The loader had to wrestle the heavy projectile and the separate propellant charge into the breech, all within the cramped, hot, and smoke-filled compartment. It could take 20 to 40 seconds, an eternity in a firefight. This limited ammunition capacity meant the ISU-152 was completely dependent on its supply chain. A breakdown in logistics, a lost supply truck, or delay in resupply could render the most powerful weapon on the battlefield utterly useless. It was a stark reminder that war isn't just fought with guns. It's won with fuel, ammunition, and the unsung heroes who deliver them under fire. A supply chain failure was as deadly as any enemy panther. It turned the beast killer into a sitting duck. The men who crewed these machines weren't the glamorous heroes of propaganda films. They were specialists who understood the brutal arithmetic of their trade. They knew their job was to trade immense risk for a decisive result. They operated a machine that was as dangerous to them as it was to the enemy. The constant noise, the violent recoil, and the ever-present danger forged a unique bond between the crewmen. They relied on each other completely, each man's life in the hands of the others. The legacy of the ISU-152 isn't about kill counts or glorious victories. It's about the brutal reality of what it takes to win a war. It's a story of trade-offs, of immense power constrained by immense limitations. It's about how a single machine could alter the behavior of thousands of soldiers on both sides. The ISU-152 mattered because it created space. It broke down walls, both literal and psychological, allowing other men to move forward, to fight, and to live another day. It represents the profound human and logistical cost of conflict, where victory is measured not just in territory gained, but in the sheer, destructive force required to gain it. It was less a machine, and more a force of nature, harnessed by a few brave men in a steel box. Thanks for watching. If you found this look into the mechanics and human cost of warfare interesting, consider subscribing for more deep dives into military history. Let us know in the comments what other legendary machines of war you'd like to see covered. See you next time.